this is Sarah from Sessa Reads, and I am back to do another portion of my yearly wrap-up. I will be talking about a series of short stories / kind of novellas by H.P. Lovecraft and his Great Tales of Horror. I got this copy at Barnes & Noble for like $10. It's a pretty good copy. My only problem with it is how thin the paper is, as well as how small the font is, and yeah, so let's get into talking about this. I've already filmed me trying to talk about this 3 times, but I just keep rambling on and on and on, because I didn't realize how many short stories I've read by H.P. Lovecraft, so like I have a lot to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a page at a time in my notes, that way I can just, so it'll probably be 3 sections, so 3 videos of me talking about H.P. Lovecraft, which, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, we can get a little bit of H.P. Lovecraftian horror going on and discuss our thoughts. So, the first story in this collection is The Call of Cthulhu, which I gave 4.5 stars. So, if you are well versed with Lovecraft, you probably are aware that Cthulhu is one of his most well-known creations. And if you've never heard of Lovecraft before, you've probably heard the word Cthulhu. You probably didn't know that's how it's pronounced, but you may have seen it around before. It's spelt like this, Cthulhu, right there. Yep. So that's what that word is. If you've seen it around before, what The Call of Cthulhu focuses on is about a man writing his harrowing journey of how he ran into Cthulhu, and the thing that I really enjoy the most about Lovecraft, especially in his story of Cthulhu, is the how unfathomable everything about his monsters are, especially Cthulhu and some of his bigger than God monsters. That's what I call them, bigger than God, because they are considered to be before God, before the earth was even created, and before all kinds of things. And with Cthulhu, his descriptions were very hard to understand, because how Lovecraft writes his monsters is that they are very descriptive, like incredibly descriptive, but by the end of the description you also realize that you didn't really read anything that described the monster, because as humans we are unable to fully comprehend these type of monsters since they are so otherworldly. And it's very fascinating, and I think that's something that I really enjoy about Lovecraft, especially in The Call of Cthulhu. And then the second story in this book is The Color Out of Space, which I gave 5 stars. The Color Out of Space is my personal favorite Lovecraft story that I've read so far out of this collection. I think it's pretty awesome. I really enjoy it. It follows a family who lives on a farm, and in this farm there's this big swirling ball of color, and things start to die, the food becomes inedible, animals start dying, the grass starts to turn white, all the colors going away, the people who live on the farm start to look sick, they start to go insane, and it's really interesting. And I personally have a deep fascination with form horror stories. Stories like, for instance, like some of the stories that are very childlike, like the Goosebumps story, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, even Harold from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Those are stories that are set on farms, and they're very creepy. They have like scarecrows, and it's just unsettling. But not only that, but then there's stories like 1922 by Stephen King, which is set on a farm in Nebraska, which is very, very scary. Then there's like Children of the Corn, which is just cornfields and corn rows, and it's just freaky. And I mean, farm and farmland is just so unsettling to me, and I think that's one of the things that really made me love the story, is because of the unsettling environment that it takes place in, and it's one of my favorite settings for a horror story. And then there is The Lurking Fear, which, pardon the pun, but when I was reading I felt that there was fear lurking in every word that Lovecraft wrote. I could feel the tension. It was very palpable. The air just felt hard to breathe. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling before, but I enjoy when I'm reading a horror story and the writing feels very claustrophobic. I can get that sense of panic myself, like I'm feeling what the characters are feeling, and that's how I felt. It was very unsettling, very scary. There is no greater than God monster, or like in The Color of Space with an alien from another planet, but the monster, which I think is probably what I enjoyed the most about it, is that it's a monster created from humans, and it was so fascinating, so interesting. I really recommend that one. I gave it 4.75 stars. So, in my opinion, I think the 3 stories showcased in this collection so far are the strongest. I'm only about halfway through the collection, so I can't, like, for sure say this is my thoughts 100%, but as of right now, with being at page 289 out of 600, those 3 short stories are my favorite. And then there is the music of Eric Zahn, which follows a man who enters a world that he is not supposed to be in. Now, this is when I say it like that, it sounds very cliche, like something every fantasy story or horror story is focused on, but this is very different. The way that Lovecraft writes a lot of his otherworldly buildings and places is that they don't have a geometric design of our world, and in this world, the man, who I'm assuming is a human because that's what our human, that's what he seems like to be. He enters this world and he says that everything feels like it's tilting and that it's not right. And I think that that's what I found very fascinating, is that feeling of discombobulation that this story gave me. Because he's in this world that he is not supposed to witness, and therefore we're not supposed to be witnessing this. We're not supposed to be interacting with Eric Zahn and his music abilities, and his music abilities go beyond our world. And it's very obvious that it's just more than meets the eye. It's very creepy, very weird, and I really enjoyed that one. I gave that one 4.25 stars. And then there's Dagan. Dagan is very similar to Cthulhu with the godlike creatures, well, bigger than god creatures, I'm sorry. With Dagan, we have a short story that's very short. It's probably about 6 pages, which means, like, not in this page, it'd probably be about 15 to 20. These pages are huge, like, they're very long, very small print. It kind of gets on my nerves, but Dagan is what I consider to be a prelude to Cthulhu, because it kind of shows where I think, from what I remember, because I read Dagan I think back in February or March. From what I remember, it had something to do with the first cult. I guess you could say it's cult, yeah. The first cult that worshipped a bigger-than-God entity, that was Dagan. And so you slowly get to see, like, this background. It's very sharp, but very brief, but it's very, very fascinating. So, those are... How many is that? Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. No? Wait. Yeah, 5. That's 5 stories from the Great Tales of Horror. I'm going to rank them. Out of those 5, I rank them from my least favorite to favorite. My least favorite being Dagan, the music of Eric Zahn, the Call of Cthulhu, then the Lurking Fear, and then the Color Out of Space. I don't think that there's really an exact order of how you need to read Lovecraft's works, especially out of this range. But I definitely suggest maybe starting with his most famous Cthulhu. Since that one is the first one in this collection, it's probably the best place to start. But I also would highly recommend The Color Out of Space. I have some more to talk about, but I don't want my camera to cut off on me while filming, like the other 2 times. Or was it 3? It's been a lot. So I will see you soon with my thoughts on the other short stories in this collection. Bye!